Hi, I'm Molly. I have been teaching Montessori for 25 years. I started in 1995 and I worked at Montessori Center School as an assistant. I did my Montessori teacher training during that time. That was a 3-year journey. I did that through CMTE New York, and I did their satellite program in Arizona. I worked at Montessori Center School my first 8 years under the guidance of an amazing teacher, Rick Drake. Between Rick and a wonderful training center, I think I'm a very strong teacher. After 8 years at Montessori Center School, I moved to Ojai, California. There I was a teacher and the interim director. After several years in Ojai, I moved to Los Angeles. My first job when I couldn't find a real Montessori school was a Reggio Emilio inspired school called Muse Elementary. An amazing experience, great people, impressive teachers. And there I was teacher and science specialist. I had a wonderful experience working at Hill Point Montessori. This lovely woman was starting a Montessori program, and I got to be in charge of the elementary. I was the curriculum coordinator. I would give the parent talks, and I was the lead teacher. Thinking that people were really wanting an accredited Montessori school, I started my own school. I called it Elements Montessori. It was in Woodland Hills, California, and that was a wonderful experience. And it was the only school in Southern California. I mean, I don't want to misquote because down south more. So maybe the San Fernando Valley would be a better way to say it. I was the only school recognized by AMS. So that was wonderful. So I was just going to talk a little bit about Montessori Elementary, the 6 to 9-year-old program. So there are many important factors about the Montessori program. One is that children work from the concrete to the abstract. So the materials are unique. They're, in a traditional classroom, you walk in and there's chairs and tables and maybe a shelf. But in a Montessori classroom, it's wall-to-wall shelves and nooks and areas filled with materials. Children are practicing with color-coded, skill-graded, hands-on tools that allow them to conjugate lengthy sentences with fun and ease, to construct a trinomial cube. They not only see the symbol for 1 or 1,000 or 1/2, but they experience each corresponding quantity in their hands. The Montessori classroom is made up of mixed ages. Published statistics show that when an older peer helps a younger child, it is actually the older child who benefits most from the experience. It enhances their self-esteem and it develops their self-confidence. I would like to talk about a couple things. I'm going to talk about cosmic education. I'm going to talk about a few other things. Maybe I'll just start by saying that, children make choices in the classroom. They're allowed to think for themselves. This is unique to Montessori. They're not told what to do. They need to think, and free thought doesn't mean that there's not structure. Teachers make sure that students have satisfied their weekly work plan, but students can choose the work, its sequence, or remain on a topic for more in-depth study. Some children will be working with math, others on language or science or geography. You'll find teachers giving small group lessons specifically targeted to the skill level of the children present at the lesson. In a Montessori classroom, academic strengths are celebrated and differences supported. Therefore, there are no limits to what the child can learn. So Dr. Montessori created a cosmic curriculum, and it allows a child to have a broad vision of the world and everything in it. The great lessons, there are 5 great lessons, and they satisfy the 6 to 12-year-old's natural tendencies. She discovered that to ignite the interest of a child, the teacher should present them with the whole of the subject. And the 6 to 12-year-old is in their age of imagination, where they have the unique ability to travel in a story through time and space. They're in their age of imagination. They have a reasoning mind, and they want to explore why and how things happen. The elementary child has a natural tendency to explore and learns best through their own discoveries. Dr. Montessori's broad cultural curriculum gives children content with which to practice and develop their ability to research and compose reports. In the fall, the third-year students, in my class, I have the third-year students perform the creation story. That's just something that I do in my classroom. I don't know that that is common everywhere. They've seen the creation story as first and second years, and so it's kind of a rite of passage that we deliver that lesson as a group to the youngers when they're third years. So this solidifies their knowledge of the experiments being performed, and it reinforces their understanding of the creation of the earth. So great lesson number 1 gives the story, it gives the grand impression of the size of the earth. It compares that size to the sun. It demonstrates the speed in which light travels. Children are performing experiments, helping them to understand mixture, suspension, solution, supersaturated solution. My graduates can tell you, the characteristics of the states of matter, how it's affected by different temperatures, how you break the bond of a water molecule. They can explain to you what is viscosity. So after receiving great lesson number 1, they have a broad perspective, and from here, they can delve into details such as land formations, rock classification, types of volcanoes, a variety of geology and chemistry extensions. So as I said, there are 5, and I kind of bounce around because I don't teach them in that order, because in order to get the most out of great stories number 2 and 3, they have to understand stories 4 and 5. So great lesson number 4, Dr. Montessori wanted children to have a wide view of time, and children love working with timelines and unrolling the BC AD timeline scroll. They use that to study the history of writing when they're second years and the fundamental needs of people when they're third years. For both of these studies, children are applying, they're highlighting successful advancements in transportation, nutrition, writing, social acceptance, clothing, and the timeline spans from prehistoric humans to Egyptians, Greeks, Middle Ages, Renaissance, through modern time. We create old-looking papers and soak them in coffee, and we're traveling back in time and re-experiencing, like while I'm giving these lessons, we're going out to check what time it is using the sundial, or we're tracing our shadows to see how early man came up with ideas for how to keep track of time. We're using Roman numerals to compute math. So by studying successful advancements over time, this engenders respect and empowers the children to feel that they too can create change in the world. For great lesson number 5, this is the great lesson of math, and I've seen a few variations of it. To me, the most important goal out of the history of math, aside from the things I was just telling you about successful advancements, is to prepare them to make the clock of eras, which is the next great lesson. So Grade lesson number 5, we combine geometry and history. And they've already been working with fractions and angles. They've already learned how to use the Montessori protractor. And so this story is the story of the Babylonians, who were great thinkers from Mesopotamia. They observed the movements of the stars and concluded that the cycle it takes for a star to return to its original position in the sky is 360 days, which is why a circle has 360 degrees. So this knowledge makes creating the clock of eras, great lesson number 2, very interesting. From their study of the history of writing, they're familiar with era and ages, meaning a long period of time, which is marked by the beginning and end of a significant event. And in the clock of eras, each hour of the clock is equivalent to 375 million years. And the color coding of the clock delineates the eras, and it tells the story of what is happening on the earth during each period. An era, I'm sorry, my cats are fighting over here. And then the challenge is for the children to make their own clock of eras by using a protractor and creating a circle that's showing that, and they're writing about the story of what's happening for the Hadean, the Archean, the Proterozoic, the Paleozoic, and on and on. It's not a great story, but it's very important to their understanding of the next great story is the biology, the zoology and botany curriculum in Montessori. Again, a 3-year cycle. So by 3rd grade, my students are studying animals now by phyla, class, and order. They're learning their Greek and Latin prefixes and suffixes. They've studied as younger students the internal parts of the 5 main classes: fish, amphibian, reptiles, birds, and mammals. They've studied the internal reproduction and movement, support, all the internal happenings of those 5 classes. And they become they're knowledgeable about each animal the way that scientists classify it. So sea stars, sea cucumbers, sea urchins are all in the echinoderms family, echino meaning spiny, derm meaning skin. So then they create animal classification charts and write reports, again, getting practice with composing topic sentence, supporting sentences, just more practice with writing reports. And then the last great lesson is the timeline of life. And so that's why I had to tell you that first, because they're going to apply that information to their timeline of life. So this timeline is laid out by phyla. They follow the line and they experience animals and plants over geologic time, learning why some animals and plants died out and why some flourished. So then that goes full circle. What else did I want to say? I mean, it's just an amazing curriculum that the cultural, the cosmic curriculum interweaves all the sciences, the zoology, the botany, the physics, with history, geometry, geography. And I think that's all I wanted to say. So thank you, and be well.